This is part 12 of the Craftsman Emerson Gen 4 Rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 11, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we will be finishing up with assembly. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Picking up where we left off in part 11, we finished installing the depth stop rod. So we're just going to verify that the rod runs smoothly. And then we will be installing the feed handle rods and feed handle knobs. And again, since there's paint inside these threads, they're kind of a pain to get on. So we'll spin that knob on top. And then tighten them in. I usually get emails from people asking if I'm missing knobs, what do I do? And eBay is your best source for missing parts. Next, we'll be installing the depth stop. And this is a 3-piece device. You've got a shoe. I've got it. There we go. That's the correct way. You've got the stop, and then there's a thumb screw that goes in that. And we'll just get that screw into it, but not tighten it down. And then we'll make sure the quill is all the way down, and then we can tighten it. And verify that it's at 0 on the scale. And we are good to hook. So next, we're going to go ahead and set the tension. And the way we do this is we pull out on the hub, rotate it towards us, and then push it back in. And let it lift the quill. Once it's got the quill seated about right there, we just want to tighten up that tension a little bit more. I like having the feed handle rod that faces forward at a 90-degree angle. So we'll see right there, this is going to be too light. The tension's not strong enough. So we'll rotate it to about right there. Test that. That's good. It's pretty snappy. That's what we're looking for. Now I've got a video about the feed retention spring and I'll link it here. Next, we're just installing the clamp for the tension adjustment rod. And kind of work it in those threads with that paint in there. And we're not going to leave the rod in right now. All right, next we're going to install the quill lock. So just like the head lock and the table lock, you've got the lock nut, which is right there, and it goes on this side. And again, those flats need to, in this case, engage the quill. And then you've got the sleeve, which goes on the other side, and it's got a flat on it as well. And then you've got the handle slash screw. And I really put a lot of grease on that for some reason. So wipe some of that off. And go ahead and install that. and then lock it down and then unlock it, but I've got grease on my hands, so yeah, there we go. All right, next we're going to install the motor. So this is probably lining up the motor, the belt, and the belt cover, all three of those things. It's probably the most difficult part of this drill press. Only because you have to constantly make adjustments until you get it right. So I'm actually putting these screws in backwards. They should be facing towards the front of the drill press, but they're easier to tighten and loosen if they're facing this direction. So we've got one started, and we'll get a second one started, and then we don't have to worry about supporting the motor so much. Not going to happen. So we'll hold it from the back side. There we go. And that motor is not going to go anywhere now. So after we get all four of these screws started, we're going to visually try to center the motor, but keep in mind that the motor mount is a swing arm. So as tension is applied, it moves further away from the drill press on that arm, which puts it off of center. And this is why you see all these belt covers that have holes in the sides of them where the motor pulley has rubbed against the sidewall of the belt cover. So getting this thing lined up is a real pain in the butt. But if you just take your time, try to eyeball it and get it as centered as possible, we're going to be loosening it and moving it at least 2 more times anyways. The height of the motor as well is important. And the height I've got this motor right now is about where we want it, but we'll be adjusting that as well. So we've got the Woodruff key that goes inside the shaft on the motor. And I decided to not delete this part of the footage. I put this pulley on upside down, and I don't even notice it yet. And I make sure they're level, and then I tighten this pulley down, and I still have not figured out that this pulley is upside down. So obviously the motor pulley has to be opposite the spindle pulley. There's actually 2 leveling measurements we need to take. One is from pulley to pulley, and then one is just the motor pulley left to right if we were looking at the front of the drill press. And that's because the 4 bolts, or the screws that hold or mount the motor to the motor mount, you could have the motor tilting to one side or the other. So you need to level it in that direction as well, but we'll get to that. So next we're going to go ahead and plug the motor in to the power panel, and we've already run the power cord out through that same hole. So it's just hanging down. And once we've got the motor plugged in, like I said, there's normally a plastic clip in the hole that I'm running this zip tie through. So I'm just running a zip tie because we didn't have the plastic clip. And the zip tie works perfectly well. I think on my other Gen 4 and my commercial Gen 4, I've got zip ties on them. You just need to make sure there's enough slack in that cord that you can swing the motor out about where it is here you won't have a need to swing it any further than that, and that'll be perfect. And then we've got the belt, and this is where I realize that that pulley is on upside down. I'm like, what the hell? Really? Okay, so take the pulley off, flip it over, adjust that Woodruff key, and the key is binding up right there. We need to raise it a little bit, and then that pulley will drop down. There we go. Then we're going to level these two pulleys. So as we lift up on that motor pulley, we level it, and then we can tighten it down. You do not want the motor pulley riding directly on the motor. There needs to be about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch gap between the pulley sheave and the motor. Then we can put the belt on. These belts, as they get worn, have a tendency to roll. So I recommend replacing the belt about once a year. They're cheap. They're like $15 on Amazon, so no big deal. As far as I know, they do not make a cogged version of this belt. So again, I'm just verifying that that motor is kind of in the center. But once we put it under tension, it's going to move to one side or the other. Like here, I'm going to apply some tension. And I decide that I need to shift it to the right a little. So it should go without saying that if I move the motor, I have to re-level everything. Now we're going to check left to right. Make sure that motor is not tilting to one side or the other. And then we will check motor or pulley to pulley. We're good. Tighten all that down. And then we can install the adjustment rod, and normally they have a rubber piece on the end. Here I'm just using a 1/4 inch rubber vacuum cap. I bought a pack of them from Amazon, and that's what I use on all of these. Then we'll tighten it down after we've got that tension on it. All right, so we're going to test run it to see if that belt stays in place on the sheaves on the pulley, which it does. So if you don't have those pulleys aligned, like if they're off by even just a little bit, that belt will come off of those pulleys. Next, we're going to install the lamp. I think that's a warm white bulb. I'm going to need to put a brighter bulb in there. It's an LED bulb. And next, we're going to install the belt cover. And we will find out whether or not that motor pulley is going to hit the side of the belt cover or not. And you can see on that belt cover, there's already 2 grooves cut into the side of it from that motor pulley not being centered like it's supposed to be. And it is hitting, so we need to adjust that motor a little bit. And this is why I say this is difficult, because you've got to do this several times until you've got everything lined up where you want it. So we'll release the tension and then loosen those screws that hold the motor on, which of course this all means we're going to have to level everything again. So you may as well take the belt cover off at this point and move everything and then re-level it, then put the belt cover back on, but I'll get there eventually. I'm just trying to make real small adjustments. And it would help if the motor mount actually had some like indicator lines and stuff on it to figure out where you're sitting on it, but no big deal. So we remove the belt cover, we make the adjustments we need to make, and then we level that motor again. And then we level the pulleys, and then we tighten all that down. Then we retension the belt. Then we install the belt cover. And then we check it to see if we're rubbing on it. And I think we're good now. So I think we're good. So we'll go ahead and run it and make sure it's not rubbing. We're good to hook. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the run out. We know that the spindle had basically no run out. So if there's any run out now, it's going to be in the chuck or how the chuck is mating to the spindle. And the way we do this is we have to take the tension off of the belt and remove the belt. And then we put a dial indicator on that rod that we chucked into the chuck. And then we're slowly going to turn the spindle by hand. And I'll tell you right now, we are 5/1000ths out. So that's either in the chuck or how the chuck is mating to the taper. That's acceptable, but I may end up doing another video on correcting that. Because it's definitely not the spindle. The spindle is good to hook. So, and it's not uncommon, somewhere between 2 and 5 is considered to be, even as much as 7 is considered to be normal run out. I don't like having that much though. I try to get it in the 3 and 4 range and call it a day at that point. But lastly, we applied some paste wax to the table surface and the boss around the column and the column itself. It's Johnson's paste wax, but yeah, that just helps protect that bare metal. And this is what we started with. Very rusty, abused Gen 4 Craftsman Emerson 15.5-inch drill press. And yeah, that thing was nasty. I don't think there was one screw or bolt on that thing that did not have rust on it. I think somebody left that outside for a couple of years. And you can see how nasty those pulleys even look. So, yeah. Ugly drill press. But we did our magic to it, and boom. So I did go back and wipe down the belt cover with that cleaner wax, that Meguiar's cleaner wax, and it cleaned up really nicely. But yeah, I think it looks great, and and it runs great. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And I've already sent a picture of this drill press to my brother to let him know he's getting an early birthday present. He really wants a 100 or a 150, but this gives him a lot more options for speed. So I think this is an excellent all-around drill press. That's why I own 2 of them already. So that's going to wrap up this video and this video series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you got any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section. Don't forget about all the good information that's in the description of the video and the links there for anybody that's trying to rebuild a Gen 3 or a Gen 4. So I've definitely got a video in the chute for Craftsman pedestal tools coming up. I think I'm going to do another video on Runout, kind of continuing the Runout issue, maybe to correct the Runout on this drill press. I'm not sure yet. And then I've got another series lined up that I'll be starting shortly as well. So lots of stuff to look forward to and stuff to keep me busy. Until then, I will see you next time.